Hey everyone, welcome back. Recently, Jake at Pulp Mortem did a really excellent overview of DAW Books. DAW Books, again, founded by Donald A. Wollheim and focusing on science fiction and fantasy and a little horror and they had pretty much they had quite a long run. I mean, they're still running these days, but the DAW Books, as fans in this corner of BookTube think of them, the yellow spine DAWs, lasted for roughly 12 years or so, and with 4 or so books being published every month through that time period. Go back to Jake's great video, I'll link it below, and get all that information about the behind the scenes and the founding of DAW. Then Jake joined Chris at Liminal Spaces for a really fun live stream where they showed off some of their great covers. DAW was well known for, putting great covers on their books, and interesting at the very least, quite often quite impressive covers, and frequently having interior art as well. Then after that discussion, some of us said, hey, we'd be interested in showing off some of our own DAWs. Now, most of us don't have nearly as many as either Chris or Jake. There were about 580, I believe, yellow spine DAWs published before they got rid of the yellow spine, or in some cases the daylight fading away the yellow spine to become a white spine DAW. But I don't have nearly that many. I think I have about 46 DAWs from what I have been able to go through. I only probably have a little over a third of them here with me in Japan. Yes, I know Jake is going to give me a hard time for how many of them are back in the States in storage. Roughly 2/3 of what I own are back in the States. Now, after Jake's great DAW overview video and his and Chris's live stream of showing off some of their favorite DAW covers, Deb at Omnivorous Reader over in Australia went through and showed off some of her DAWs in a Show Us Your DAWs kind of unofficial tag. There's no official tag. Jake at Pulp Mortem and those guys, they don't tend to do tag videos. I don't believe Deb usually does either, but this is kind of a fun tag of an unofficial sort. I'm going to follow Deb's lead and show off some of my own DAWs. So what I'm going to do is have a mix of DAWs that I have here with me in Japan, in my cave here, and the rest I will just put up their cover photos of the ones that I have back in the States in storage. So let's start with the earliest I have, which is number 20, and that's Old Doc Methuselah by L. Ron Hubbard. This is a collection of space opera stories, and I know L. Ron Hubbard has a certain reputation these days as the founder of Dianetics, but he wrote some fun science fiction, and these are fun stories. Now, this is you can barely tell there's any yellow on the spine. It's a pretty beat up edition and pretty faded, but I'm glad to have it. This is the earliest DAW book I have, number 20. Josh Kirby did the Old Doc Methuselah cover. Okay, and then after that, and I'm really surprised I don't have that one here with me because it's one of Carter's best books, and that's number 30, Under the Green Star by Lynn Carter. Now, this is one of two of the biggest of Lynn Carter's planetary romance series. His Callisto series was for a different publisher, but the Green Star is kind of his take on Burroughs' Barsoom Chronicles, where the hero kind of astrally projects himself. Carter probably was a little bothered by how unexplained John Carter's transition to Barsoom in Burroughs' original work was, kind of just frittered away and not much time spent on it. So he spent a bit of time setting up the situation where the spirit of a man, an earthman, basically inhabits a great warrior at first. He goes into another body later, but he inhabits the body of this kind of, I guess, in stasis sort of human warrior guy, and he comes to the aid of Niam the Fair, this altogether too young princess figure. But the Green Star world is really cool and very different in a lot of ways, and its imagination and execution than Barsoom. So that makes it one of Carter's better series. It's just a world mostly giant trees everywhere. Giant, I mean, huge thousands and thousands and thousands of feet into the air, and then there's different kinds of life down in the bottom and on the floor of the giant forest, and then people live in cities in the sky or up in the parts of the trees world. It's very, very interesting and fun, and fired my young imagination when I was reading it. Now, one problem with Lynn Carter is he usually starts the series really strongly, and it kind of, his interest, you can tell, maybe kind of fades as it goes on, and the last couple of or the next to last and the last novels in the sequence don't always keep up with the enthusiasm and verve of the earlier entries. And that kind of happens here with this one. But the first 3 books at least are very good. Okay, let's move on. I have also number 33, Transit to Scorpio by Alan Burt Akers. This is the first of the very long-running Dre Prescott series by Akers that I believe Daw published all of. I haven't read that one. I always saw them out in used bookstores, and probably still can find quite a few of them now. But some kind of space opera / planetary romance sort of thing. Next, I have number 48, and this is one I do have here. That's The Other Log of Phileas Fogg by Philip Jose Farmer, obviously doing a science fiction version or sequel to Around the World in 80 Days. And this one has art. Well, you can see where I got it from in the inside flap, Paperback Exchange. They put a big ass stamp there, and had so much ink it carried over onto the blurb page there, the foreword. This is illustrated by Jack Gauguin. I guess he did the cover as well as interior illustrations like this. Damn ink still crept through there. This one does have occasional illustrations in the inside, it looks like. Passepartout. As you can see, I'm missing huge gaps of the first 580 or so yellow spine DAWs, which I believe they stopped making the yellow spines, publishing the yellow spines from June 1984, around the 580-81 number. Well, number 62 is When the Green Star Calls by Lynn Carter, and this is the second Green Star book, and it's very fun, a very good one. I believe this one, again, measuring by the standards of Lynn Carter. Okay. Then I have number 71, which is one of my favorite science fiction books, really, and that's Hunters of the Red Moon by Marion Zimmer Bradley. Now, this one is still reasonably intact yellow spine there. I talked about it more in my science fiction overview video. This is cover art by George Barr. And it looks like G. Barr did this interior illustration too, because there's his name, G. Barr. I know Miss Bradley is kind of persona non grata these days because of what she allowed to happen with her husband, and there's lots of controversy there, and I can understand why anyone would avoid reading that because of this book, because of that. But this is a really excellent book, and if possible, if you can separate the artist from the art from the artist, this is a good one for sure. Next, I don't have it with me here. I have it back in the States, and that's number 91, The Burrowers Beneath. That's a Brian Lumley kind of Cthulhu mythos expansion. He did several stories with a character called Titus Crow, and that's got a very cool cover. And then I have number 100 right here, Hey Dawn of Ancient Opar by Philip Jose Farmer. And this one's yellow spine is more or less intact. Let's see, the artist on this one appears to be Roy Krenkel. Again, it has some interior artwork here, and they sometimes had some really cool little title page on the inside there. And this Krenkel, this is one of the ones that has some interior art all the way through, here and there. And this is kind of, again, you can tell from the name Opar, which is lost city in Africa that Tarzan visited in a couple of Tarzan novels by Edgar Rice Burroughs. This is one of Farmer's kind of homages to Burroughsian fantasy. Opar, the Atlantean colony in the heart of Tarzan's Africa. Opar, in the words of Edgar Rice Burroughs, a hidden city of gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. Opar is the starting point of this fabulous novel of 12,000 years past, when Africa had an inland sea and a high civilization bloomed among its forgotten shores, when lost empires flew their time-vanished banners, and deeds of daring were commonplace. So there's 2 in the Opar series by Farmer, and the other one, Flight to Opar, I'll mention later. I have, but not with me here. The next one, again, I don't have here with me. I don't have any of the Green Star books with me, though I have all 5 in the series back home, and that's 110 by The Light of the Green Star. And this, along with the first one, is probably my favorite in the Green Star series. At this point, the hero that our Earthman's spirit had entered has been killed by treachery, and he's come back in the body of a young kind of slave caste boy, and who has to fight to find and free his princess love, Niam the Fair, and convince her that he is the same person she fell in love with before, which takes some doing, understandably. Anyway, that's really fun. Then we have The Paradise Game by Brian M. Stableford. And there's a pretty cool cover right on the front there. This one is, again, in decent, pretty good condition, really. And I believe this is one that was shown off in Chris and Jake's live. There's a boot stomping on a flower here. And the art in this one is by Kelly Freas. And after that, let's see, The Star Road, number 116, Gordon R. Dixon. Now, sorry, I have a sticker still there that I have yet to remove. And again, a little bit interesting alignment there. You have some of the blue and the yellow, maybe a little too low, a little cut off there. But otherwise, this is in a pretty good condition as well. And this one has art by Eddie Jones, as well as having not art all the way through, but it does have the traditional yellow spine frontispiece piece of black and white art. Okay, after that, I have more Lynn Carter. Surprise, surprise. I don't have that with me here, though. 125, Warrior of World's End. One of the briefer, I think there's only 3 books in the World's End series, but that's a pretty fun series, although it never was one of my favorites at the time. Then 138 is another Green Star book, the 4th Green Star book, As the Green Star Rises. And then another World's End book that I have, 150, Enchantress at World's End, again by Lynn Carter. Like I told you, I was a Lynn Carter fanboy at the time. The reason I don't have many of them here is because I don't tend to read him so much now. That's more of a nostalgia purposes why I hang on to his books. But like I said, he's fun if you take him in the right spirit. Year's Best Fantasy Stories by Lynn Carter. That's number 166. Again, I have that. Talked about that briefly maybe in my fantasy overview shelf tour. I don't have that with me here. Also, another Michael Moorcock. This is in his Oswald Bastable kind of steampunky sort of series. The Land Leviathan, 178 in the yellow spine numbering. And that's by Michael Moorcock again. And then 187 is Iron Castle by Philip Jose Farmer. Now what this is, it's actually by J.H. Rosny. J.H. Rosny is a French writer who wrote some fantastic adventure tales. And this is also set mostly in Africa. It begins at the Baltimore Gun Club and then moves on to Africa. Now this one is Farmer's kind of adaptation or translation from the French of this adventure novel. The main core of the idea is pretty cool. It's Iron Castle is a kind of explorer, and he brings his daughter and a crew of adventurers to go and explore this region where he's got a friend corresponding to him that there's some kind of alien artifact or meteor or something, or spores landed on in part of Africa in the wilderness. It's mutated the life of the people and creatures around there. And there's some cool illustrations in this, including this one. Two peculiar animals appeared. Again, the art here, I believe, is by Roy Krinkle. And you see they encounter an enemy tribe called the Stunted Men, who are almost like ninjas, the way they can burrow through the earth. And again, this has got some difficult racist overtones here and there, but it's a cool adventure tale. Farmer, again, is kind of a real straightforward, wham bam sort of writer. And at least when he's doing this kind of pastiche fiction, I guess, although this is not pastiche so much. This is someone who was a Burroughs contemporary. I think it was 1922 was when this novel first came out in the French. And then I also have, sorry, I'm just looking down at my list. Then there's 197, Flight to Opar, again by Philip Jose Farmer. This is a sequel to Hey Dawn of H and Opar. Then we have some of the William Chester Kyoga, the Snowhawk, kind of Arctic lost race novels. We have One Against the Wilderness, which Jake showed that cover in the chat with Chris. Very cool. Looks like a weird reptilian creature in a canoe with a Native American or Native Aboriginal person anyway. And Kyoga of the Wilderness is next, number 228, next to what I have, and that's also by William L. Chester. And this one I believe shown before, giant, Kyoga taking on a giant-sized polar bear. Again, this one's spine is pretty faded, but it's one of the thicker DAWs. This one's, 200, almost 300 pages. And here's Kyoga the Snowhawk. And I believe Kyoga is kind of a similar Tarzan sort of thing, where he's a white guy who's raised by these tribal people, these natives in this lost Arctic land, and then there's an exploration party that comes in there, a la Tarzan of the Apes, and with, of course, a beautiful woman involved in the exploration, and gets, again, Kyoga, the Snowhawk, comes to their rescue. Anyway, these stories were originally published in the pulps in the 30s, and I believe, 1936 for this one, and the cover's by Richard Hescox. Pretty badass cover there. One of Moorcock's other series, The Jewel in the Skull. I believe that's a Dorian Hawkmoon novel. Again, don't have that here with me. Number 2, that's 225, and then 239, The Right Hand of Dextra by David J. Lake. Now, I thought I had this one here with me, but I do not. It's back in storage in the States. After that, 253, The Warlord of Gondor by Del Dowdell. Now, this is another kind of planetary romance, quite interesting in that this case, it takes a Scottish warrior, I think from back in the, the Rob Roy era, basically. Around, I don't know if Battle of Culloden was mentioned or somewhere in that, that kind of time period. He's being attacked by enemies on all sides, and he runs through some kind of cloud on the battlefield or whatever, and he ends up on this other planet, Gondor, and gets involved with the princess and beastmen and becomes the warlord. And, it's kind of a John Carter riff. Quite fun in its own right. That one I have also back at home. I have several of the Aldair, these kind of weird beast peoples. This is like a post-apocalyptic Earth, far, far in the future, and all these creatures have developed into humanoids, these pig people and dog people and cat people, etc. And that's by Neil Barrett Jr., 259, the first one that I have, Aldair, Master of Ships. There might be an earlier one that I don't have, an earlier DAW numbered one that was released first. I don't think I have that one, but I have 3 of them anyway, and this is the first that I have, Aldair, Master of Ships. Next, another, I believe in the Oswald Bastable short series by Michael Moorcock, number 291, Warlord of the Air. Then we're back to our old friend Lynn Carter with number 293, The Wizard of Zhao. And then in 320, The Survivors by Marion Zimmer Bradley. And this is the fun but inferior sequel to her Hunters of the Red Moon, where the survivors, the three key survivors of that first novel, that's why it's called The Survivors, of course, are now rich and bored because they've survived that ordeal on from the Hunters of the Red Moon, and they set out to find their next adventure, I guess, after sitting on their laurels for a while, and it's good, but it's, it doesn't have the focus that first and the key hook that first book had. The next one I don't have here with me, and that is Lord of the Spiders, also known as Blades of Mars. I believe both titles might be on the books, depending on the edition, and that's Michael Moorcock, and that was DAW 26. And I also don't have the Jack Vance Planet of Adventure editions. He wrote this 4-book series, and I thought I had all 4 in DAW editions. I don't have the first one, City of the Chash. I think that's in a different version, not a DAW version. It's got a pink cover. I'll put that up here if I can find it, that I have. But I do have number 2, 3, and 4 of Jack Vance's City of Adventure quartet, and they're kind of his very unique to his own voice, to Vance's own style take on a Barosian Sword and Planet story. Mixes some space opera elements. Basically, the hero of this series crash lands on this alien planet and gets in all sorts of adventures. So I have number 342, Servants of the Wank. Now, quiet there in the peanut gallery. No giggling over that title. Servants of the Wank, spelled W-A-N-K-H. I kind of wonder why Vance chose that name. Surely going to cause tittering amongst teenage boys everywhere. And then there's the Dur and the Noom, number 3 and 4. I'll get back to those in a moment, but in numerical order, since I'm following that. Next is number 343, Morlock Night by K.W. Jeter, an early book by noted horror and fantasy writer K.W. Jeter, another kind of steampunky precursor. Obviously a take on a sequel of sorts, playful sequel of sorts to H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. This one, I believe, Brian at Bad Taste Books picked up at this past month's Pulp Fest. Next, we have The Year's Best Horror Stories, Volume 7, edited by Gerald W. Page. And this is number 346 in the DAW numbering sequence. And this one has a lot of great stories in it, including my first exposure to Manly Wade Wellman's story, Chastel, which features Judge Pursuivant teaming up with another of Wellman's occult investigators, Lee Cobbett. And I talked about this story back at the end of Horror Mayhem. I'll put a link below to that as well. But there's other great stories in that edition as well. Okay, now we get back to Jack Vance's Planet of Adventure series, and we wrap that up with number 347, The Deer, and number 351, The Noom, P-N-U-M-E, and I'm assuming the P is silent. Then, everyone's favorite, Andre Norton, Quag Keep. Now, Quag Keep is number 353, and I've had this one for a long time. I've never been able to make all the way through. It's a kind of Dungeons and Dragons, early Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing, where some various types of characters are hanging around wondering what's going on, and you find out that they were maybe humans who were playing this game and have been pulled into the real world equivalent of it. It's intriguing. I've always been interested in it. I will read it at some point someday, but I just remember, tailing off after the first couple chapters in the past. Okay, then we go on to probably the DAW book that started it all for me, and that's number 362, Journey to the Underground World. And again, I believe this is Josh Kirby who did the art in this one. Yeah, good old Josh Kirby. Look at that. This is Eric Carstairs, adventurer, and he's joined by Professor Potter, I believe his name is. Again, anyone who's read Burroughs at the Earth's Core will recognize David Innes, the American two-fisted adventurer, and Professor Perry, Abner Perry. So quite similar in that way. And this underground world is very, very similar to Pellucidar in that it's called Xanthidon, this world, which is the title of the second book in the 5-book series. But it's really fun. It's got a little. The opening reminds me of Robert E. Howard, Francis Xavier Gordon, El Borak story, where Eric Carstairs is somewhere in Morocco and is immediately attacked in the alley and takes down his assailants and rescues this kind of puny elderly scientist with his little Van Dyke beard, and then together they he hires Carstairs to use his little Sikorsky helicopter to go through this. They find in the desert this little this tunnel that leads down to the, all the way down to the hollow world, and they fly this little helicopter down into it, crash land, have all sorts of adventures, get captured. He finds and kind of first offends Daria, beautiful princess girl, and then has all sorts of adventures. Quite fun. There's no Mayhars, but there are some leech-like creature equivalents. Lots of dinosaur action. Very fun. Like I said, this book really inflamed my young imagination at about age 10 or however I was. I actually might have been, let's see, when did this come out? 79. So I probably bought it around 79, 80. So I would have been, I guess, about 12 maybe or so when that came out. So a little older, but definitely the right age for this book. Some more cool illustrations inside if I can find them here. There's of course Cro-Magnons and Neanderthals, one of whom Hurok eventually becomes Eric's best friend. Eric Carstairs. Nice kind of interaction, attack by a plesiosaur on a raft or on a ship there. Eric Carstairs running afoul of a saber-toothed tiger. Josh Kirby, just some great interior artwork in that. One of the older books in my collection probably, and one that I still, that's why it's here with me in Japan. It's still kind of a nostalgic favorite of Carter's. And then after that, I have, again, back in storage in the States, number 379, I'll Dare Across the Misty Sea. The 391 is the sequel to Journey to the Underground World, Xanthidon. This cover art's not fantastic. Now, I have a funny little story to go with this one. I kind of like it, but it's kind of, look at the face of Eric Carstairs, little funny looking. The guy can't do the faces very well, maybe. It doesn't seem like it would be, no, this is Thomas Kidd did this. But he did some good interior illustrations. There we got some kind of Viking there, it looks like. And what else do we have? I know we must have some illustrations beyond this. Oh yeah, the giant leech creatures hypnotizing Professor Potter. So again, they're kind of taking the place of the Mayhars, although they certainly don't rule all of Xanthidon, just a little corner of it. But you'll be reminded of the Mayhars in the sacrificial pit scenes from At the Earth's Core. My funny story is I had this book, and I remember I was in some kind of art class or something, some kind of class with a student who kind of remedial student from a few grades above me. And for some reason, he was really bothered by me, and he decided to deface, he was drawing I think he drew like a penis on or something and drew a weird goofy face on my cover, and I was really, really angry, but he barely got a slap in the wrist from the teacher. I've since replaced that edition, obviously. Then we have Optiman by Brian M. Stableford, number 406. Or Optiman or Optiman, I don't know how you would pronounce that. Flesh and Blood War Games on a Conquered Planet. And this one has cover art by Michael Mariano, but no interior art in that one. Kind of interesting cover, though. And again, this one's not in the greatest condition. This is a fairly recent arrival, maybe 3 or 4 years ago I picked that up. Then we return to the Xanthidon series with book number 3, Hurok of the Stone Age. You can tell this is an original that I've had for a long time, and it's well loved and beat up. But I think we're back to good old Josh Kirby again. Yeah, Gotta love that. Look at that. Hurok again was the Neanderthal pal of Eric Carstairs in this book. You know, as is typical of Burroughs, Carter does the same. He brings his kind of cast of friend, companion characters together, and then he scatters them to the four winds, and they have to make their way back to rejoin each other later. And that happens here. And this book's told mostly from the perspective not of Eric Carstairs, although theoretically he's narrating it because he is the first person narrator of most of this series, like David Innes is in the beginning of the Pellucidar books anyway. But this is told from what I guess was later related to Eric Carstairs theoretically. Hurok, the Neanderthals' adventures, trying to find his way back to good old buddy Eric Carstairs. We have a scene from the novel with these two stone-carved dinosaur heads and a tribe of invaders riding brontosauruses and such. Very fun, very cool series. If I have Daria of the Bronze Age, the fourth one, I remember having it and I was so disappointed in it because it was Daria's time in captivity on a pirate vessel before escaping or being rescued by Eric Carstairs. I can't remember which exactly. Sounds like it'd be pretty exciting, but I remember it being pretty boring and disappointing, so I might have gotten rid of my copy of that. But I do have the final one, which I'll talk about in a moment. Next comes number 459, and it's this fantastic alternate Africa Black Tarzan sort of story, Imaro, and by Charles R. Saunders. And, Imaro attacking this hippo creature, demon thing. There's not a lot of fantastical elements in this from what I recall. It's just a really tough, hardcore story of a young boy who's, kind of apprenticed to a certain element of the warrior tribe and becomes a great warrior on his own. And not always the most likable character, but he had a tough upbringing, and he's quite a cool character. And I think it's kind of a fix-up in ways from some past stories that Saunders wrote. Anyway, fantastic book if you can get your hands on this. There were also 3 sequels, I believe, one perhaps only in an ebook form. I don't have any more of the Imaro books, sadly. This is the only one I have, but it's pretty great. Now, also back home, I have at number 466, Aldair, Legion of Beasts by Neil Barrett Jr. Final book in the Xanthodon series, number 483, Eric of Xanthodon. And that also has cover art by Josh Kirby, if I recall correctly. I don't have that one with me here because it's also not the greatest. It's kind of getting to the Pebbles and Bam Bam era where I guess at the very end, I guess it's unfair. At the end, they show Hurok has his son and Eric Carstairs has his son, and maybe future adventures will occur, but never did. But wraps up satisfactorily anyway. Then I have a very fun, one of the better Carter books, Kesrick. This is Carter having fun with all sorts of classic fantasy creatures and peoples and gods and religions, etc. And I believe Tim at Secret Fire Books has mentioned that this is a really wacky cover, and it is a pretty wacky cover. Trying to do it in maybe kind of a classic medieval style. Keith Stillwagon did the art. There's a dedication in here from Lynn Carter to the undying memory of James Branch Cabell, or Cable, I don't know how you pronounce that one, and Lord Dunsany, perhaps the 2 greatest fantasy writers of us all. And this was published in November 1982. And by this point, Daw was not doing interior art at all, really. So, but this is a fun one, and it does have, unusually so, because, lots and lots of mythological references. And so, chapter breakdown of all the things that Carter is bringing together. And Carter was very well-versed and educated and knowledgeable about many different aspects of classic fantasy works. He's talking about, he's breaking down all the mythological creatures and peoples that he puts in the book. Good fun. We're kind of getting to the end in the yellow spine run here and the end of what I have. I only have a couple more. 518, The Gates of Eden by Brian Stableford. Again, it has another sticker on the front there. And this one has a pretty cool cover by Douglas Chaffee. And then that was 518, then 519, immediately followed by Isaac Asimov Prevents the Great SF Stories, Volume 9, 1947. So he goes all the way up to way beyond that. And no art on this one either. And then that's the last yellow spine that I have, although I do have at home, I have one of the Cap Kennedys, The Jewel of Jar Hen, the 5th Cap Kennedy. I believe there were 16 or 17, and as Jake pointed out in the live chat with Chris that I referenced before, those had an unusual yellow front cover art livery, but black spines, and those were published under the name Gregory Kern, at least at the beginning, and Gregory Kern was a pseudonym for E.C. Tubb. Now I do have another Lynn Carter here, and this is Daw, Down to the Sunless Sea. This is a standalone, and as you can see, it's got a new Daw logo, no more yellow spine, and reproduction of the cover art on the back. Anyway, that brings to conclusion my long tour of Daw books. Thanks for sticking with me, at least if you did all the way through to the end. No matter how much you watched the video, I appreciate it. I enjoy hearing about people talk about their DAWs and showing covers, and hope some other booktubers do, as well as anyone who wants to comment and talk about some of the DAWs you have. I know a frequent commenter on my and other booktube channels, Brittleby, has got almost a complete collection. Very impressive number of those. Now, I'm not looking to be a completist. I would like to get a lot more DAWs, especially as you'll notice, most of these are kind of fantasy adventure and planetary romance, Sword and Planet, more than straight up science fiction. I like to get more of the straight up science fiction titles into my collection. But without really trying to collect over the years, I collected a decent amount, I guess. Maybe what's that, about 46 is probably, I got about 1/12 of the yellow spines maybe, or 1/13 of them. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Enjoy what you're reading, and if you have any experience with DAW books yourself, please drop me a comment below, and we'll see you next time.